What's going on YouTube? Welcome to the Financial Canuck channel. My name's Adam, and today we're going to talk about TFSAs, RRSPs, how they're similar, how they're different, what account you should be looking to invest in first, given your current situation, and we'll talk a little bit about the tax implications for both accounts. It's important to understand that both accounts, the TFSA and the RRSP, are both tax-sheltered accounts. So that basically means that they're sheltered from tax from the government in one form or another, and we'll get into the differences right away. But we'll start off with the tax-free savings account. The TFSA was introduced by the Canadian government in 2009, and since then, anyone that's 18 years or older, unless you're in BC, it's 19 years of age, has been able to open up a TFSA. The biggest advantage of a TFSA is that it's tax sheltered, meaning that the money that you put into the account cannot be taxed, whether that's just growing in appreciation or when you take the money out. At no time in that whole cycle is it ever taxed. There is, however, one exception. If you hold a US stock in your TFSA and it pays a dividend, that dividend payment is subject to a 15% withholding tax. In general, and I say this with a grain of salt, it's better to have Canadian funds in your TFSA rather than US funds, but if you're not too concerned of the 15% withholding tax and you think that the US companies that you hold are going to do better than Canadian companies that you may be interested in or be holding currently, then it really truly doesn't make that much of a difference. So it's really up to you. It's your personal preference. The contribution room of a TFSA is cumulative, meaning that if you didn't happen to contribute one year, that you don't lose that contribution room, and it just gets added on to the next year. So you'll probably see a graphic on the screen right now kind of explaining how the contribution limit has increased each year, and that's to account for inflation. Part of the reason I say the TFSA is so versatile is that it's good for not only long-term holding but also short-term goals that you may have, such as just saving up for a big purchase, whatever that may be, a car, or what have you. But in the short term, because you're not taxed on taking the money out like you are in an RRSP, there's a huge advantage in putting the money in your TFSA for that. When you make a withdrawal from your TFSA, you're actually able to recontribute that amount the following year. You can't do that with an RRSP, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I generally would recommend that if you're just starting out and on your financial journey, or you're just a beginner, or you're young and you're not making too much money right now, I'd strongly suggest you start off with a TFSA over an RRSP. An RRSP you basically want to start implementing or start contributing to when you are, in your highest earning years. TFSA is good for when you're a lower income earner at the time. The TFSA is also just a simpler account to get to know how all the taxes and all that stuff works. It's really simple. It's not taxed at all, with the exception of the US stocks potentially paying a dividend. So otherwise, it's just pretty well straightforward. You're investing after tax dollars, and you're not being taxed on any capital gains. That's basically when your stocks or bonds or whatever you own in your TFSA are appreciating. That difference in capital is your capital gain. So you're not taxed on that. You're not taxed when you put the money in. You're not taxed when you take the money out. So all in all, it's just a simpler account to use, and I would recommend anyone to get started on a TFSA if you haven't already started it. One additional just kind of fact, I guess, is that you can open as many TFSAs as you would like, but the total cumulative amount that you can have is that 69,500 deposited into your TFSAs across all of the ones that you may have. I currently have two, so I have one with Quest Trade, which is the main one I use. The other one's with Royal Bank, but I basically only use that once to get free banking. You have multi-products with them. That's how I do my free banking, but it's kind of up to you how many you want to have. You may have it for different reasons. Mine's for free banking, but you do you. And with that said, let's get going with RRSPs. The RRSP was introduced in 1957 by the Canadian government as a way to incentivize people to start saving for their own retirements. Now, The RRSP account is slightly less flexible than a TFSA, and I say that because it comes down to the time that you're taking your money out of the account. So in a TFSA, you're not taxed when you take your money out of an account, but in an RRSP, you will be taxed. So to illustrate this point, we'll put up a little graphic here. Let's say our friend Barry here is making $60,000 in taxable income, and he's taxed at a rate of 30%. The income tax he's paying on that $60,000 is going to be $18,000 in income tax. But Barry made a $5,000 RRSP contribution. So because of that $5,000 RRSP contribution, he's now earning $55,000 in taxable income. That's taxed at the same rate of 30%, but now the income tax is $16,500 versus $18,000 when he was making $60,000 of taxable income. Therefore, you take the differences in income tax, and that's how much you'll be getting on his next income tax check. So essentially, Barry's just deferring paying taxes on that $5,000 contribution until later on. So that's why I said it earlier, it makes sense for someone that's in a high income earning bracket to be contributing to your RRSP, because you're more than likely going to have a lower cost of living in your retirement. So you'll have a lower income per year in retirement. So then you'll be paying less in taxes then than you are in your highest income earning years. So that's basically the main advantage to an RRSP. And then we'll get into the little other details of the RRSP right now. The contribution room in your RRSP is based on 18% of your previous year's income. And similar to a TFSA, the contribution room is cumulative. So basically, if you don't use the room up in 1 year, it just gets tacked onto the next year, tacked onto the next year. So I think the maximum you can contribute is to $27,230 for 2020. That's if you're making like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and obviously 18% of that is going to be a lot of money. So they do cap it at $27,230 for those higher income earners. One of the main differences between RRSP and a TFSA is that when you do take money out of your RRSP, you do not get that contribution room back, except for in the case of buying your first home. The home buyers plan was a incentive put in place by the government of Canada to allow you to make one withdrawal from your RRSP in the amount of $25,000, completely tax-free, towards the purchase of your first home, or even if you wanted to build a home, it could go towards that. It has some qualifications that needs to meet before they would allow you to do that, but there's more details in the link below in the description. Some interesting things to note about your RRSP, a fun fact, if you will, is that if you contribute $2,000 more than your limit in your RRSP, you should be fine. But anything that you contribute beyond that, even $1 more than the $2,000 over your limit, you will be subject to a 1% penalty per month. Another thing to consider when it comes to contribution room that people can get, I guess, a little bit confused about is the limit that they have for that year. And let's say, for hypothetical sake, that you have a limit of $5,000 that you can contribute to your RRSP this year, and you contribute all $5,000 of it. And over the course of the year, that $5,000 that you invested grows to $10,000. You're not over the limit, so you don't have to worry. The only thing that counts towards your contribution limit is your deposits, not how much your stocks or bonds or ETFs or mutual funds grow within the account over that year. Something that's important to note is that if you are contributing to your RRSPs and you work a job where you're also contributing to a pension plan, you want to make sure that you're not over contributing to your RRSPs. You want to keep track, because while you're contributing to your pension, that's also cutting into your contribution room for what you can contribute to your RRSPs. So it's a way to stop people from, I guess, double dipping in a sense. The other thing is that when you take your investments out, or your money out of your RRSP later on, and you're being paid that pension money, your withdrawals from your RRSP are going to be taxed quite heavily because you're making money on the pension money and you're also making money from withdrawals from the RRSP. So that in that case, if you are being paid a pension, you want to make sure that you invest in your TFSA first and then RRSP after that. And then beyond that, you would just get a margin or cash account, which we'll probably do a video for later on down. Also, if you wanted to find out what your contribution limit is, you go to, what is it? CRA My Account. And I'll put a link for that in the description as well. In summary, if you're a low income earner right now, or you're at the beginning of your career, it's probably best to start off investing in a TFSA, whether that be through Questrade, Wealthsimple. All the Canadian banks have their own brokerages, but basically, if you're just starting out, TFSA is the way to go. It's simple. You're not taxed on anything at any point. You're using after-tax dollars, and then later on in life, when you're in the high income bracket, probably best to use an RRSP and start investing in that. Take advantage of the tax break later on when you're in a lower income bracket, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So I hope you got some value out of the video today. I hope to be posting a new video every week. And if you wouldn't mind, if you got to this point, please drop in a like and subscribing to the channel. That'd be very much appreciated, as I'm trying to get this channel off the ground. And more subscribers, the better. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.